Good morning, Kal Kadosh. 10 minutes of Torah, B'shutchem. Today, we're going to learn a big Hidush. Hold on tight.
I love Hidushim.
There's a holy book called Tehillim, written by one of the greatest of all time, David HaMelech. And the Gemara, before we learn this Mizmor Gimel, it's a very short Mizmor, but it is very impactful and it's filled with a lot of great life lessons. There's a rule that the Gemara Masechet Pesachim, in Daf Kuf Yud Zayin, the 117th page, the Gemara writes a general rule about Tehillim. There are 10 different types of leshonot, 10 types of terms that David HaMelech used to open or to start his Mizmorim. There's Mizmor LeDavid, sometimes LeDavid Mizmor, HaMenatzeach B'ginut, Ashrei, and Hallelujah, etc. 10 different leshonot. One of the ones that we see many times is Mizmor LeDavid, the Psalms of David, the song that David HaMelech sang. But the Gemara asks, what's the difference between a Mizmor starting Mizmor LeDavid or LeDavid Mizmor? Famous LeDavid Mizmor is Mizmor Chav Daled. We read it on the Mizmor of Rosh Hashanah, of Ptichat HaParnasah, and we read on Sundays in Mizmor of the Leviim, the David Mizmor LaHashem Haaretz U'Ma'ah. So this Mizmor we're about to learn starts Mizmor LeDavid. So to understand where this Mizmor was written, if you learn the words of Tehillim through the eyes of Chazal, through the eyes of our sages throughout the Talmud, you get incredible insights on the book of Tehillim. And if you learn the commentaries, there's Rashi, there's Radak, Mitzudat David, Mitzudat Zion, they usually allude to many of the places Chazal, our sages, spoke about this Mizmor, and they teach you where David HaMelech was and what he was experiencing in his life when he wrote these words. One of the powerful things about Tehillim that every Jew in the world feels is we all have a connection to the book of Tehillim. And actually the same Gemara I quoted mentions why. David HaMelech wrote the entire book through Ruach HaKodesh. He had the divine spirit of God upon him when he wrote the words of Tehillim. And therefore, it wasn't just words, it wasn't just a journal or a diary of his life. They are words of godliness that the Gemara says that every single Jew could tap into. No matter what problem you're faced with in life, and Rabbi Nachman Mibreslev actually sees it, someone showed this to me. He says that no matter what problem you are faced with in life, what difficulty you're afflicted with, any chapter of Tehillim or any line of that chapter you open to, you could find your problem in those words. Because it was Ruach HaKodesh. These are the words of God said through the lips of David HaMelech. But they're Ruach HaKodesh, it's one of the 24 books of Tanakh, and therefore they're very powerful. So what is the difference between LeDavid Mizmor and Mizmor LeDavid? Says the Gemara, although everything was written with Ruach HaKodesh, when David HaMelech was on a spiritual high, and he was connected and uplifted spiritually, so he would just open his mouth and the words of Ruach HaKodesh would fly out of his mouth. That's when it says LeDavid Mizmor, meaning David was on his spiritual high, and then he sang the Mizmor. But sometimes David HaMelech was down, and he was afflicted, and he was chastised and belittled and mocked and mimicked and belittled by his brothers, by the kings, by the greatest and most prominent figures of the generation. And he was very down spiritually, emotionally. And in order to uplift himself, he had to start singing songs. He took out the kinor. He had many different instruments. He had a violin, he had a flute, he had many different instruments. And he would start playing music. Because the Gemara says that En Ruach HaKodesh Shora Mitoch Atzvut. When a person is sad, the divine spirit of God cannot rest upon him. So what does he have to do? He has to sing some words, sing some songs, and uplift his spirit. You have Mr. Antebi and Mr. Basha, they can come sing for you. You feel like you're in Gan Eden. Ishtabach Shemulad. They're good hazanim. It gives you a good spiritual high. Actually, the Gaon Vilna writes that the highest way to tap into spirituality, not through Torah, is through music. That's what the Gaon Vilna writes. Wow. And he says that music can be mevatel yetzer hara. Obviously, he wasn't talking about if you're listening to Hashem Yahem, people who are mavir the yetzer hara, and they give you endless yetzer hara, some type of artists. especially the secular ones that sing about nonsense and women and clothes and tavot and the lust and physical temptations of this world. But when you're listening to makamim, to spiritual music, this type of music is uplifting. It brings a person to a spiritual high. So therefore David HaMelech sometimes needed that hizuk. And that's when it says, Mizmor LeDavid. First he started with a mizmor to uplift himself. Then when he got to that spiritual high through music, it says LeDavid. Now he had Ruach HaKodesh. That's what the Gemara Pesachim says. So this mizmor is called Mizmor LeDavid. It starts with that. And David HaMelech was on Har HaZeitim. And actually, there was a rebellion against him. And the enemy, the person initiating or leading this rebellion, was none other than his own son, Avshalom. And David HaMelech is being chased. And if you look in Shemuel Bet and Perek Yudaled, you see when David HaMelech is standing on Har HaZeitim, it says he put his head down and he started crying. So although we all know David HaMelech was on a high level, and he had a lot of bitachon, it hurt him. He was emotionally down, and he cried. And he's being chased by his own son. And he writes the word Mizmor LeDavid, Bevarcho mipnei Avshalom beno. The Psalms of David when he's being chased and he's fleeing for his life from Avshalom, his son. Adonai marabu tzarai, rabim kamim alai. How numerous are my tormentors, the people who afflict me. Rabim kamim alai. Endless amount of people step up against me. That's the simple pshat I would have said. But Baruch Hashem, I'm not the one translating the Tehillim. Rashi will translate for us. Rashi says, what does it mean, Rabim kamim alai? People who are great, Torah giants, are coming up against me. Who is he referring to? Anyone heard of Shimi ben Gera? Rosh HaSanhedrin, beautiful. Aywa. Hazak, give him a kak, please. Hazak Baruch. Shimi ben Gera was Rosh HaSanhedrin. The Zohar Kadosh says he was the Rebbe of Shlomo HaMelech. David HaMelech paid him to teach his son Shlomo, Chacham Mikol Adam, the wisest of mankind. He needed a great rabbi. Who was he? Shimi ben Gera, Rosh HaSanhedrin. One day Shimi ben Gera is walking out on the place called Bahurim. It says this is in chapter Tet Zayin of Shmuel Bet. I saw it last night. And Vehu Kelani, very good. Tamshich Kevodo. Kelala Nimretzet. What's Kelala Nimretzet? First of all, he comes out and he sees him. So just to understand the history, we have 2 minutes left. It's a 10-minute class. I'm sorry, only 2 minutes left. But you have to understand the history. He's walking on a place called Bahurim, and this is a time when the kingship was in the dynasty of Binyamin, the tribe of Binyamin, and Shaul HaMelech lost it already when he didn't kill Agag. Shmuel HaMelech said, Kara Hashem et mamlechet Shaul, the kingship, the dynasty of the Binyamin was done. And they moved over to the tribe of Judah, of Yehudah. And David HaMelech was anointed as king, but privately, in the house of Ishai, and not everybody knew about it. And there was a revolt led by Avshalom, his son. And Shimi ben Gera, who was from the tribe of Binyamin, was very bothered by what David HaMelech is doing. He sees David HaMelech walking on the place called Bahurim, and he starts cursing him. Next to David HaMelech was his general, Avishai. There's Avishai ben Tzuria. Avishai ben Tzuria. There's Yoav ben Tzuria was the general. His brother Avishai ben Tzuria was with him. He was also a very, very courageous leader in the war. And he was walking next to him. And he's getting cursed. The king, imagine you're walking with your Rebbe, your rabbi is with you, and someone comes and he curses him out. What are you going to do? Mr. Sheheba, what would you do?
Punch him out.
Punch him out? That's
Only punch him?
I thought you're from Brooklyn, Habibi.
We don't have your license.
Okay, fine. Here in Miami, we don't need licenses. So you call Mr. Manacheri, he'll whip out one of the weapons, and that's it, he's done. That's it. What is he doing? Avishai ben Tzuria looks at David HaMelech. He said, Lama yikalel hakelev hamet et Adoni HaMelech. Why should a dead dog be cursing my master, my king? That's it, off with his head. He whips out his sword, let me kill him. David HaMelech says, wait a second. I don't remember the exact words of the pasuk, but he says to him, he says, Ma li velecha, that's the words he says. what do me and you have, meaning me and you are on two different pages. If that's your reaction, then what are you talking about? You want to kill him? Hashem amar lo lekalel. Hashem put those words in his mouth. Now, for years, I heard that at that moment, David HaMelech was zocheh for a great upgrade. Who knows what he was zocheh at that moment? To be Regel Revi'i B'Merkava. Beautiful. That's it. Give him now. We have to upgrade the cock to give you a croissant. You're from France, no? Tomorrow we'll get you a croissant. Okay, so we'll give it to everybody else. So, what happened? He got an upgrade. He became Regel Revi'i B'Merkava, the fourth leg of the throne of God, of the throne of glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So I looked for a source, and I found that Rabbi Eliyahu Tamari in his book Shevet Musar, in the 20th chapter, he brings it. Also the Hafetz Chaim. Many disagree with the Midrash because we cannot find the Midrash itself, but two great rabbis, Rabbi Eliyahu Tamari, for those who know the book of Musar, Shevet Musar, Midrash Talpiot, also written by him, or the Hafetz Chaim. You don't need my introduction, who he was. And they write this, that at that moment he was zocheh, he merited being the fourth leg of the throne of glory of Hashem. For being
Because
able to be quiet. He held back.
He held back from...
Yeah. And I'll just conclude with this. You know what would have happened if he would have killed Shimi ben Gera? The Gemara Maseh Megillah, Daf Yud Bet Amud Bet says, if at that day he would have killed him, what would have happened? Who came from him? Mordechai HaYehudi. And Mordechai Yehudi came from Shimi ben Gera. So Mordechai Yehudi, the first time he's introduced in Megillat Esther, he's called Ish Yehudi Hayta B'Shushan Amira ben Ish Yamini. Ben Shimi ben Kish ben Yair ben Kish Ish Yamini. He's called Yehudi, meaning from the tribe of Yehuda. And then he's called Ish Yamini from the tribe of Binyamin. Says the Gemara, decide, is he from Yehuda or Binyamin? The Gemara says, no. The tribes of Yehuda and Binyamin were arguing who has the bigger merit. Is it the tribe of Yehuda or the tribe of Binyamin? Tribe of Binyamin said, what do you mean? He's from Binyamin. We do. The tribe of Yehuda said, no, Habibi, you don't understand. If it wasn't for the tribe of Yehuda, for David HaMelech not sparing him his life, there wouldn't have been the story of Megillat Esther. Because he came, because David HaMelech didn't kill him that day. He survived and eventually had Binyamin. So look at how much benefit came out of it. It might have been hard to swallow that. Imagine. So you're the king of Am Yisrael, you're being ridiculed, mocked and mimicked. The whole way he's throwing stones at him, the Pasuk says. He spat at him in his face. And what happens? David HaMelech stays quiet. We should be zocheh be'ezat Hashem for emunah shlema and having complete bitachon in Borei Olam and understanding whatever comes our way is a test and an obstacle from Borei Olam, and ultimately only good will come out of it.